Tell you what, we do a clap before we start this show, and I can usually judge if we're on and off by the clapping percussion sound. And I tell you what, Skeet's almost broken my eardrums. We are absolutely sizzling on the Shelter FootyCast, live from BackChat Studios today. Big preview coming up. Skeeto, great to be with you. How are you?
Hello, Scully. Good to hear you in full voice and no sign of the ailments that tend to get hold of you every second week, but you're sounding really smooth, almost Pavarotti's tones there.
Pavarotti.
And
isn't that a bit of,
it's
rest in
just
peace,
operatic.
Is he dead or?
Well, I'm sure he's dead. Anyway, he's the voice, it's good. And you are in full voice this week, whether it's potting the umpires, potting those who think Luke Jackson's leaving town.
I'm not potting
you are in your element and just engaging in social media. You take them on. You're like those blokes you see in the in those on social media where they're punching blokes who keep coming at him. That's you. I don't know if that's how.
And what are you?
Well, I'm just sitting back laughing with the popcorn going, Scully, take it on the world. It's brilliant.
Once we get into off season and the footy season finishes, we should just do some podcasts where things that make Skeets happy. It's like Scully losing money, Scully losing tips, Scully trying to make comebacks in the footy, Scully getting bashed on social media. Anything else maybe some success for me that would actually make you happy? No.
I'm happy that BackChat's flying and you're going to Melbourne every second week and then living a dream.
You took negative already.
I just find it really interesting that you love that banter and almost the vitriol that comes your way on social media, whereas I tend to think, no, I can't be bothered getting involved.
No. You just need enough beers to get onto to Twitter because you do venture in there and out there.
Occasionally.
All right, can you give us a tweet this weekend? Just one. Just one. Just your thoughts on something.
Yep.
Doesn't even need to be footy related.
What time is it going to be before 10? Because it's after 10, it could go a bit pear-shaped.
I'd personally prefer post 10. But Skeet, good to be with you, mate. Welcome to the Shelter FootyCast with WA's best footy show and WA's best beer combining to bring all the biggest footy news and preview round 10 today. Is that right? Is that correct?
Round 10.
Is that right? Wow.
And I don't reckon you could tell me who played 2 weeks ago. And nor could I. We're just, someone asked me, got asked in the 6BR studios last night, who did Walyalup play in last year's Indigenous round? I said, you're kidding me, aren't you?
Last year.
I'm lucky to remember who they played. They played Collingwood. It feels like about two months ago.
Well, it does. That is going to be a significant talking point. They've had a break, haven't they, this week? Of course, our numbers today will be brought to you by Aspect Accountants. If you're a small business owner like me, or even looking to take your side hustle to the next level like Skeeter, contact Aspect Accountants this end of financial year for a free initial consultation on all things accounting and taxes. Tell them Shelter FootyCast sent you. Now,
I worked it out. What? I have just worked it out while you're up and about. Because it's a bit like when my wife Victoria just disappears for a week or so and just says, look, I'm going on holidays. Do you mind if I go? And I say, just go.
My wife and kids are in Bali.
I worked it out. And now you see he's bouncing around. He's got sort of like a bachelor for a few days before he has to go back to normality.
As we all know, you are an idiot. You are an idiot. AspectAccountants.com.au. Get in touch with Ben and the team there. They will sort you out. He's on me at the moment, Ben, because I haven't sent across what he's requested. He Ben and Aspect Accountants, he's just.
Oh, you mean from a personal point of view?
Oh no, business as well. I've got a bunch of things I need to send him, and I'm holding him up, and I love that about him because he's just like, Scully, sort your stuff out.
But this is because this is from the last financial year, which is almost ending into the next one. So maybe that's why there's some urgency.
Yes, but he's good at his job and I am not. So that is what we need to know about that. And by the way, winter's coming. So winter's hitting. It's cold this morning. Go and get yourself some beer for the winter. Shelterbrewing.com.au. Use the code ShelterFootyCast at checkout for 10% off beers right now. It'll be delivered to your door. Go on. If you're listening now, you're at home, get your phone out at the same time. Get on to shelterbrewing.com.au. Get yourself some beers, 10% off. Shelter FootyCast at checkout. Right, Skeet, let's get into it. Some big moments this week. We'll start right here in Perth. We've got to. Luke Jackson, expected by some to request a trade back to Melbourne. Melbourne don't have their first round pick this year. They traded that to Essendon to get Harvey Langford last year. So that's down the track of if he does expect a trade and how it's going to happen, Cosy Pickett, trade. But on the other hand, some do not expect Luke Jackson to ask for a trade this year. Ryan Daniels over here has since reported he's told close to him that he'll stay and he's very happy at Fremantle. Where does this one lie, Skeeter? You're usually the portrayer of truth.
I've my news days are dwindling, and you know what? I'm quite happy to sit back as an onlooker. Interesting that the two quarters at the West, who's reporting that more recently, and Mitch Cleary going back in time, but saying that he's more likely to request a trade.
Well, no, not more likely. It's on the back page. Luke Jackson's out.
Yeah, so there's that, and then as you mentioned, Rhino, who's in the same stable, is putting a contrary view. Now, I don't know where it lies in between that, but clearly there has to be some element of truth. I don't know what level of truth, but I mean, Mitch Cleary doesn't make stuff up, and there has to be, I think, some semblance of uneasiness perhaps about either staying here or maybe not unhappy being at Fremantle, perhaps, the opportunities back in Victoria. Now, whether that's with his partner or not, I'm not sure. But I don't think it's a non-story, but I think it's fascinating where it sits at the moment.
So they're the two media stories right now. They're completely conflicting, to be honest. So, which is, it's an interesting situation to be in, particularly when I've had to go at one side of the story and people are carrying on. It's been a brilliant 24 hours on X. I might add that. Absolute Muppets coming out of the woodwork. It's just been brilliant.
but you've been quite strong, yet.
Yeah, but I don't know what's going on. As if I know what's going on. But that's what's funny about it. People are so concerned about right and wrong and first, and I just find it funny. Like,
I do too.
You know who probably knows what's going on? Luke Jackson.
I was about to say, Oscar Allen came out when there was all the noise about him meeting with Sam Mitchell. He put it on there was such a demand for an explanation. Are we at that point with Luke for the second time?
Well, it's a great point. Didn't we already get this? So, look, I know that players backflip. I know Dan Houston did that. I know Tom Barras said unless the rug gets pulled from under him, which I'll stand by, it did get pulled from under him. But players change either their minds, their opinions, or what they've said.
We all do in life.
That's correct. But we're probably 5 weeks removed from Luke Jackson in bare feet at a press conference basically saying, you're all wrong, I'm staying. So how many times do we keep going back to the barrel with the person who's making the decision? Like, Luke Jackson knows. You and me don't know. Twitter doesn't know. People have taken sides on this one, and I just find it hilarious. People asking for me to apologise. I'll tell you one thing I won't be doing, apologising for an opinion. Who thinks that I'm going to apologise for an opinion?
Can we just roll the Conor McGregor audio into that?
We need Travis Kelce. Know your role. Play your role. Shut your mouth, Skeeter. I'll tell you what. It's just an interesting one. If you had to press me on what's going to happen, Skeeter, Luke Jackson stays at Fremantle right now as we sit here. But do I know that? Not really, Skeeter.
Interesting. And Melbourne is the only club that he's been linked with because of his background there. And you just mentioned the draft collateral, which Melbourne doesn't have in the sense. There's talk of a straight swap for Cozzy and Luke Jackson, which if you're a Docker supporter, I'm not buying into that. And it sounds good on paper. And we have to go back to 2015 when I think the last direct swap from club to club was you were at the Eagles when Lewis Jetta went across to Sydney.
Cal
Sinclair came to West Coast.
So it was just a straight swap and it's the last time it's happened?
Well, that's, yes, according to my spies.
Oh, God. That sounds like good.
I read it.
Someone's written it somewhere.
I hope it's right.
But the difference is Luke Jackson has a contract till 2029.
I know.
It's not... If he was out of contract and he was a free agent and we're talking... not a free agent, but we're talking about trading direct swaps. But he's got a contract until 2029. Like, that's the other part of this sort of story. And again, this isn't something Luke or Freo or probably even Melbourne has put out into the wilderness. I think there's some people hunting for some chaos.
Do you think this is manager-driven?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know whose, but that stories in footy either drive from leaks, from players, clubs, or managers. And I think potentially...
I think if you're going to put it out, managers, in my humble opinion, having been a juror, managers are probably most likely to want to push a narrative out there to try and,
Clubs like it too, Skater.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Yeah, no, you may, yes, you're probably spot on there, but you're right. It's a lot of this is engineered. It's not just by good luck that a journalist finds a story.
But we find ourselves in a situation again where a guy's on a long-term contract and... I don't know if it's just because there's all these shows talking about the ins and outs and who's going to go where and what the potential trades are. Like, there's more of that, or the contract value. And I don't mean in money terms. I mean the value morally and the value to a contract signed means less. And we've got more player movement and sign a 10-year deal. Oh, who cares? I want to go home again.
Now, you know more about, just in brief, about the NFL than I. Are there any parameters in the NFL or other sporting codes where if Will Schofield signs a 10-year deal, you're obligated in more than just signing a piece of paper to at least serve 50% of that, or have some sort of regulation so the contract means something to both parties?
Well, I think there's more movement and there's more money, and basically players are valued at what they're valued. So if Luke Jackson signs a $100 million deal in the NFL and he's at the Patriots and he wants to go to the Packers, well, the Packers go, well, he's worth $100 million, so we'll just keep paying that $100 million and we'll take on the contract and we'll sign him to a new deal that's worth $110 million, and
on we go.
Yeah, Patriots write it off, Packers pick it up, and it's just on your horse.
I should know this answer. I know there's a draft. There is a salary cap though in the NFL.
Yeah, there is, but it's big.
I'm going to say, it's 110.
There's also private ownership, so
yes.
Like they don't have the soft cap issues that we have here. Like it's a very different game. I know people like to talk about the NFL,
and we do model a lot of our structure on that.
The draft, and they have equalisation measures in place.
Now, what about the NBA lottery? We were talking about just recently
the rigging.
That's the Dallas Mavericks, and where that all. People in the AFL suggest that we should do it that way and follow the American style. But yeah, anyway, we're just getting away from our initial subject.
Every 10th year, the NBA draft gets rigged, and this year was a rigged draft.
As LeBron James suggested it might.
LeBron James. So there you go. That's Luke Jackson. We don't know what's happening. Hopefully he stays at Fremantle just for our sake. All right. The AFL, mate. Like, you're saying I'm potting people. I think I'm in the majority here.
No, but are you potting the AFL or are you potting umpires?
Well, both.
What a surprise.
So I'll start with the AFL. Laura Kane and the umpires. But Laura Kane and the AFL, that has just been a complete debacle. It is Thursday, and there is still stuff going on from last Thursday's game. That is when Fremantle and Collingwood played. To not have this ticked off and solved for an issue that any lay person watching the game, at the game, any player that played in the game, any umpire that umpired the game, that saw it, that knew that Lachie Schultz was in trouble when it happened, to not put a statement out that said, hey guys, we should have stopped the game. We got it wrong. We'll try and be better next time. But instead, we're up to our fourth statement from the AFL. The first statement was wrong. I didn't speak to this person. Oh, the wrong next statement. The statement from the umpires was wrong to me. So now it's the umpire's fault. The umpire fucking didn't see this and that. I mean, this is a pretty lay down misère simple case, mate. They should have stopped the game. They didn't. And we move on. But instead, it's Thursday and we're still dealing with it.
Yeah, and you're right. To us, and we were calling the game, you heard the audio last night on radio with 6PR where we were quite adamant that this is wrong, this should be stopped. So this isn't a hindsight case. This was one on the night. There was a mistake, mate. If it was the umpires, just say, look, for whatever reason, the play wasn't stopped. Own the mistake, whoever's mistake it was. People, whether it's politics, whether it's sport, whether it's in life, I think most people, my bad, got it wrong. When you're driving and you might cut someone off, shit, didn't matter. You put your hand up and apologise to me if I'm behind you. I'm going, okay, that's cool. But if you give me that one, Sco, which is very much in your sort of character,
that is flipping the bird for those just listening.
I'm getting a bit riled. So my point is, if you admit your mistake, if there's a mistake, I think a lot of people move on pretty quickly, and you learn from that and all the other issues instead of trying to dance around the subject. Now, whether it's the AFL, the umpires, someone made a mistake and needs to just put your hand up.
That's one issue though, Skate. Off the top of my head, and I'm missing lots, I'm sure. Willie Rioli, we're a week removed from that. That was poorly handled. Willie Rioli suspended himself before the AFL could even get their shit together to suspend him. Seriously. So that's poorly handled. And they didn't know about other incidents. Noah Bolter. Like that felt like a complete misreading of the general public's...
they didn't read the room.
Yeah.
I don't think.
So... is it just as naive and not competent enough to read the room, or is there actual issues in which the administration is not handling big issues in the game?
Well, has Laura Kane, and look, I think Andrew Dillon as a CEO, he seems like a really upstanding bloke and is doing and he's highly regarded in footy circles.
Yes.
I just wonder whether Laura Kane, and this is no slight on her, but whether she needs some more support around her, experienced footy types. Now, we know that there are other roles another role that's being opened up, and Simon Garlick's been approached for that sort of COO position. But more footy types or experienced bodies. Josh Marnie's obviously in this space as well. Whether Laura and her team need a bit more experience and guidance. Now, bear in mind, Trevor Nisbet, former Eagles CEO, is sort of doing a review on behalf of the 18 clubs about the AFL, a whole wide-ranging look back at what he thinks are the pros and cons and the faults and the positives for the AFL. So I think in essence, this has been a bad 2 or 3 months. And all those cases you mentioned, I think could have been handled better, absolutely. So whether they can put in place more support for Laura and Josh and that area, I think, and it certainly would make Andrew Dillon look a lot better, because at the moment he's wearing a lot of the flack that's coming his way.
Well, there's been significant criticism of Andrew Dillon in the media over East, so there's been comparisons to his predecessors in Andrew Demetrio and Gillan McLaughlin. Yep. The amount of media they did and the speaking that they did, he's doing a lot less. He doesn't have any weekly commitments in any media, so we don't hear from the CEO like we used to. Now, that's completely fine. Like, no one's the same. But what it does do, it puts Laura Kane out in front, and she's getting some wrong. Like, for whatever reason, she'll get it wrong, and she's being held to the highest level of scrutiny because everyone's so passionate about the game. So I actually think that he needs to take a little bit of heat off, and he's the CEO. And
do you mean step up more?
Yeah, we need to hear more from Andrew Dillon. He's the CEO.
Yeah, no,
whether he likes it or not, that's what he is.
Yeah, and to be fair, Gillan McLaughlin was such a charismatic in terms of spoke so well, had a great turn of phrase. So Andrew's probably not in that same level, but it doesn't. Yeah, you may well be right. Maybe he needs to be a bit more stronger with the issues at hand and have his fingerprints over it more so than just allowing others. Now, he might be doing that, and if that's the case, then he's obviously at fault through some of these cases as well.
Make no mistake, the umpires are not happy about being thrown under the bus multiple times by the AFL. So, I don't. If we can, that's probably fair enough, right? I don't think they've had a good year, the umpires. I've made no, hiding away from the fact that I don't think they've had a good year. There's more mistakes being made than I think than we've seen in past years. There's 4 umpires. That gives opportunities to umpires that aren't as experienced, but it also gives more areas of interpretation on the field. Instead of 2 umpires, you're kind of getting 2 opinions. Now you're getting 4 opinions.
But that's 4 umpires been in for a while.
Yeah, but I don't think it's getting better.
I don't deny what you're saying. And again, you and I sort of have different views on this. Only because
you love umpires.
No, I call the game, and I don't. You analyse, and you're sitting there watching. I'm actually, it sort of breezes past me. There are obvious ones like the Cozzy Pickett trip and the goal square, and there have been decisions made, absolutely this year, which have been critical. But I reckon if you go back over the last 10 years, at some stage in the first 3 months of the season, there's a week where everyone goes, right, we're sick of umpires. This is the worst it's ever been. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we're in that space now because of a couple of incidents.
I agree, but I don't want to say verbatim, but pretty much around the mark. At some point this year, I've heard the AFL say the umpire's never been better. So that's not right. Like that's another thing that, like, the reading of the room, like, that is not correct.
I just also think the AFL has made the job of umpires so that the 15-metre kicking rule. I know you said you could step out tomorrow and do a pretty good job as an umpire. I think that is a tough rule in itself, just to get that right with where you're standing on the ground. It just adds another layer to what the umpires are having to do. The tackle, the tackling is so difficult for players to execute, and umpires are supposed to determine whether it's a sling tackle, a dump tackle, a legal tackle. I've got a bit of sympathy for them, only on the basis is I guarantee you most of the Muppets out there that pot umpires every week, they go out there, they'd end up looking like absolute dills.
Shout out to the Muppets listening along right now, and shout out to me and you.
That's you included, yeah.
I would agree with that. I can't argue that. I think it's a bloody hard game to officiate, but that doesn't mean they've done a good job.
And no, but you can still be open to criticism, and don't worry, they don't get missed either.
No, correct. Just a couple of little updates for you, Skeeter, across the AFL. Jamerra Hagen has checked into a health retreat.
Yeah, I've read that. It's a spa.
Would you like to check into a health retreat?
And still get paid? I'd like to do that. No, well, there's obviously
Check me in.
a couple of sort of an afternoon massage, maybe a spa treatment in the morning.
Bintang.
Yeah.
It's just barley, isn't it?
That's barley. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, it might put it on a serious note. If that's a catalyst for him, it sounds like at least it's a step that he's acknowledging he's lost his way a bit. So he'll be picked up by someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Given the Dogs are going to probably part ways, someone will grab him and determine that he's salvageable.
And just a big congratulations from the Shelter FootyCast to the coach of the Geelong Cats, Chris Scott, on becoming a director for 5G Services. That's right, the man with many hats. He's now a director at another company. So... how
does that make headlines?
It just feels like Geelong's taking the piss. That's why it makes headlines, because he was just investigated for his role with a sponsor and so he's had to step down from that role, and then suddenly he's like a director somewhere else. He's not executive. Non-voting director.
Is it different to Simo owning Hungry Jack's franchises or not?
It's not a bad point of view, Skeeter.
Good luck to him, by the way.
I think Cox has got one in Sydney as well.
No, I reckon it's great, because I've been trying to get Carl Langdon and I into a franchise somehow through the...
Uncle Jack Cowan, he was in town.
He's a Canadian as well, so I could have used... he was in the box and I didn't get to chat to him. And
should have brought your passport along.
Could have talked about our Canadian background, and we're not going to become the 51st state, all that sort of stuff.
What's the three sort of Canadian things you'd speak to Jack Cowan about? Owner of Hungry Jack's, by the way. Hungry Jack is Jack Cowan.
Yes.
What the three Canadian...
You've got to talk about ice hockey when we knocked over the Americans. Probably from there I'd go to Pamela Anderson, just about how she's tracking that at the moment. And
then you're done.
Just to finish off, maybe just Celine Dion, to see that she's in decent and can sing us a farewell song when we depart this earth.
Ice hockey and a very attractive.
And maybe Pauline Gretzky as well, the daughter of Wayne Gretzky.
Okay, perfect. We'll see where your mind's at. Very good. Shelter Brewing Co., the beer that we can't get enough of. Will Schofield, Mark Renning, Shelter FootyCast. Let's get into the game, Skeeter. You're back to work for Thursday. You got a bit of a soft day on Thursdays, don't you?
No, I only got 5 hours on radio from 5 to 10. So, that's soft. As my wife says, you're not really working today. I said, no, I'll just go in there and do a 2-hour review after a match finished at 8 o'clock, listening to and doing a quiz with Paps, who loves that, listening to our engaged callers ringing up. You know what it's like.
I love that. Victoria, not really working today. No, just the 6 hours today. That's very good. GWS v Walyalup. I'm going to try my best to get through these, Skeeter, all right? Because it is Sir Doug Nichols round, and I'm going to do my best, but you probably won't hear me double up on them. So the Dockers v the Giants. Give me a good game. Saturday, NG Stadium. Fremantle, 0-4 at NG Stadium. Average losing margin of 46 points.
Yeah, that's not great, is it? When you think of history between the two clubs. And I just can't go past what I saw from the Giants in the second half against Geelong. I was so impressed with what they did. Bear in mind the week before they looked a bit shabby.
They've been inconsistent.
Inconsistent is a really good term. But I did see their midfield, when Tom Green gets involved, Callahan, once they get their running game going, they're impressive. And obviously with Jesse up forward, they're an imposing side. The Cadman as an offshoot to that, Toby Green, and their back line, as we know, Sam Taylor leads the pack there.
I'll come back to GWS, but thanks to Aspect Accountants, last week Freo became only the 6th ever team to lose after being 25 plus in inside 50s and plus 10 plus 10 contested possessions and plus 10 clearances. 6th ever side in the history of the AFL.
Well, I was asking I think we all asked the question afterwards, how do you get 60 plus to 30 plus inside 50s and lose by that margin or any margin? And I said, I wonder if that's happened before, but obviously that's the answer.
Just the 5 other times. So,
in the history.
In the history. So, look, Fremantle have some issues. Sean Darcy, he's going to be a test with that knee. Do they bring Austin McDonald in? I tend to think no. I think they play Luke Jackson as the ruck and Voss. Voss is competitive.
They were too tall last week in attack.
I mean, that just doesn't make sense, does it? Because they had 65 inside 50s, and with how tall they were, you'd think they'd dominate.
Yeah. Well, you've got to give credit to Collingwood on that basis.
Too often, though, they don't want to hit up and come at the footy. They want to bomb it in, and they had guys like Jeremy Howe and
Darcy Moore, etc.
Darcy Moore just absolutely chopping them to pieces. So that'll be an interesting one for them. Neil Erasmus backed up after being sub last week and had 30 disposals in the waffle. So he came on in the AFL.
I don't think is that
And he
happened?
played in the Waffle.
That's very rare. Is
that correct?
Yeah, he did play in the Waffle. He dominated the Waffle.
I didn't know if you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure the rules. Obviously, either there's a lever they can pull on that basis because of maybe the game time, the percentage of game time. I'm not sure, but it's good he gets some footy because he has to be. If you're going to make a change, do you give him more of a look this week? And tell you what, if you're going to find out if this kid's any good or this young man's any good against the Giants, you're going to get a pretty good audit.
Yeah, so you asked me last night, are they going to pull any triggers at the selection table?
And they didn't after the Saints game debacle. They did very little.
I'll give you the players they could bring in. Right, so Liam Reid is one. They won't do that. O'Driscoll played in the Waffle last week.
But he probably, well, he's a possibility. But
they have brought players back too early from injury, so I think they'll be very gun shy to bring him back in.
Exactly. So, but his numbers were still
17 touches he had, and a goal.
Bailey Banfield kicked 3.
Kicked 3, role player. They may look at him because they know that he's reliable. He's not going to have 30 touches, but he'll play a role for you.
Oscar McDonald kicked 3 again, but where does he slot? Is he slotting forward? If that's the case,
they're too tall with him in the side. Will Brodie had 34 touches in the Waffle. He had 27 handballs. Would have had a stack of clearances. Does Will Brodie get out of the blacklisting that he has had for 2 years at this footy club?
Bermuda Triangle, isn't it? Well, we know he gets a footy. Now, we know his defensive issues that have been spoken about, but at some stage, Justin Longmuir, I mean, you do have to make a call on whether if this guy who can get the footy at Waffle level so regularly, and he did it, 3 years ago, it feels. Aren't we at a stage of the season where at least find out whether he has that capability again, and we know his deficiencies and whether you can work around that, or certainly, because at the moment it's not working. They had 60 inside 50, so they're obviously getting the ball in there.
Yeah, but they're not winning. So when you don't win, changes happen. Totally. So we'll be watching that. Skeet, just a bit of a shout out to my friends at the Giants, right? If I can just do this one quickly. They have played. How many times have they played it? Oh, do you know the answer to this?
No, but I think you're talking about venues.
How many times they played at their home ground this year? We're at round 10.
Well, they played round 1 as a certainty. I'm guessing this will be their 3rd.
They have played twice this year. Yeah, Collingwood in round 1 and the Eagles.
Yeah.
They won by 81 points.
And we're in round 10.
Mate, that's a disgrace. Now there's been some stuff with the Royal Show, I think, and maybe a couple of other moving parts. But we're in round 10. Just imagine if Collingwood or Essendon or Richmond or anyone else had played at their home ground twice. Freo or West Coast. Imagine if Freo or West Coast played round 10. Can you imagine the noise that would be being made right now? No. I've heard nothing. So that's a disgrace.
Well, Dave Matthews, thankfully, he's got a voice, and he puts out some ideas. Some are good, some are indifferent, some just obviously create a couple of headlines. But that is, I mean, did I see the stat right? Maybe 2 weeks ago. Is it Harvey Thomas from the Giants?
Yeah.
It is Harvey Thomas, isn't it? That he has played at more venues already than Pendlebury.
Yeah, correct. Because Pendles doesn't travel. Remember, he wasn't here last week. He doesn't know where Perth is, Pendles. Look, I just think if we're talking about equalisation, we're talking about fixture scheduling. Come on.
Well, I've mentioned about the MCG, the lack of access to the Giants, to the Suns, to clubs that, particularly this year, those 2 clubs are going to be, and Adelaide, I guess, are going to be potentially playing at the MCG. But don't worry about that. AFL, no, everything's hunky-dory. Now, that's one thing that just gets under my skin. The lack of clarity and fairness with regards to the grand finals played in one venue, but you get one look at it this year.
Don't worry about equalisation. That is unfair.
Absolutely.
That is genuinely unfair.
It doesn't matter. It won't matter, Sco, what you say to them. Yeah. And whether Trevor Nisbet, Don Pike, Simon Garlick, they will have banged on about this, but it's deaf ears.
Yeah, correct. They would have been banging on about it in the early 90s.
Absolutely.
Who wins it? It's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a really good game.
I can't until I see the Dockers perform away from home this year. I can't trust them.
Giants for me to Waalitj Marawar. That is the Eagles versus Euro-Yroke.
Yep.
That is the Saints. So the Eagles v the Saints. Optus Stadium, Sunday, 2:40. I don't know if that'll be a sellout, but West Coast usually get a pretty good crowd. It is the boys' 50th match. That's right. Ruben Jimby will play his 50th match, so they're getting games into those kids. I like to see that. Jeremy McGovern will miss. under concussion protocol still. And Oscar Allen should be likely to return. So they don't get one of their leaders back in Jeremy McGovern, but Oscar Allen should be back off the back of that knee. They've got some other issues in the injury front at West Coast that may or may not have been reported, but we'll see we'll see what happens when they name their teams tonight, Skeeter.
Why would you be so coy? Yeah, it's like it's like the kid in the corner saying, I've got a secret for you.
Like all sides, there's players right now playing injured at West Coast. So, and there's some pretty decent ones. So, would imagine
in the forward half. So, Jake Waterman's the only.
I didn't say the forward half.
Oh, you said the forward half. Sorry.
No, I said like all sides. They're playing.
No. What did you say? You said there's.
I can't remember.
I think you said the forward half.
No. Just I think there's some 50-50 calls being made as well. So West Coast against St.Kilda. A lot of people are saying that they're feeling the vibe that this could be the Eagles' first win of the year. Are you feeling that, Skeeter?
I won't be. I haven't tipped them because I haven't seen enough over 4 quarters to suggest they can win it. Their composure hasn't been great in the last quarter against Richmond. A couple of little stats and notes that I think's worth discussing. Champion Data putting out their best 10 kicks and
they put their worst 10 out.
Worst 10 as well, which I'm leading to that. So
who's the best kick?
Number one in the worst category is Liam Baker. So he's there, and Liam Duggan's also in that top 10
5
from the Eagles.
But should also be noted Nick Dacos is in that top 10 worst kicks.
He's number 10.
Jordan Dawson, George Hewitt. So you can take it as you like because watching the game, George Hewitt has been Carlton's best player this year. So regardless of what he's doing he's been their best player. And I would say Liam Baker has probably been one of the West Coast best. Jordan Dawson he's having his best year of footy this year, but they've rated him as one of the worst kicks.
Yeah, I just think also, for those listening, I only sort of fell across this a couple of years ago, like effective disposals, kicking efficiency, or there's some stats that I think we've discussed it. If you kick the ball 35 metres to a contest, that's an effective disposal.
Yeah.
So I just think in my head, it was effective disposal. It means I'm hitting my target 35 metres away or whatever distance, which is the minimum. So, yeah, some of those mislead. I think you're right, though. Some of those players, we talked, obviously, Dacos, a gun.
Who were in the best? Who are the best kicks?
Oh, that's actually...
I think McGovern might have been.
I know Lachie Ryan was in that top 10.
He was.
Yeah.
Mason Redman was in it.
Yeah. Who was number one? I'll have to revisit that. And now the other question I need to ask you, we can talk about the Saints game, the result, etc. But Tim Kelly, a new deal pending, potentially 2 years.
Has it happened?
I don't think it's happened. More importantly, are you comfortable with what's happening on that front with him? 2 years doesn't seem too long, too short. Obviously, backing him to rediscover his best form in the short to medium term.
Yeah, I mean, it brings back into discussion around West Coast list management decisions over the last 5 years, really. And some people who are critical would say that that's not a move you need to make right now. Is Tim Kelly going to go leave and play somewhere else? He might. I'll tell you who else might. Oscar Allen and Harley Reid, and probably higher priority targets for them. But you got to understand with list management, Tim Kelly's not signing Harley Reid's contract. Like Tim Kelly's not, they're not signing him for 2 years at $1 million a year. So it could be a significantly reduced deal.
It has to be.
Absolutely. But you can't just look at it in isolation. For all we know, he could be signing a deal for $150,000 a year plus matches, and West Coast go, well, that's a no-brainer for us. So we don't know what that is. You'd have to think that they've learnt over time that locking away senior players that are getting older and older for multiple years hasn't been a good move. And
that's maybe where we're going back to Oscar. I'm not saying his age is an issue, but his body, and I'm not sure his values gone north in the last month, for instance, just on the basis of the lack of game time.
The West Coast Eagles have had big injuries to their senior best players. If you go back to Nick Natanui, Luke Shuey, Elliot Yeo, Jeremy McGovern, Tim Kelly, these guys are all players that have had big injuries and missed significant chunks of time on the back of big contracts that they're on. So, and Oscar Allen with his knee. So, they're going to have to look at that. I don't know if that's pulling the trigger or not. Who's going to win that game?
Euro-Yroke, I think, will win the game. And
that's the Saints.
That's the Saints, for what it's worth. Look, I just think Ross will be able to shut down the Eagles where required, Waalitj, Marawar, and they'll get the job done. But yeah, I mean, I hope the Eagles win, just because no one wants to see. Well, unless you're an Eagles hater, I'd like to see them win some footy and some games.
Well, sure, that's fine. No one's asking what you'd like. Like, I'd like them to see them win a premiership, but it's not
I think they'll be. They're always competitive at home, by and large. And I think their performance are getting better incrementally.
All right, I'll pick the Saints. Thanks. Gold Coast v Hawthorn. Why have some teams got their Indigenous names and why have some?
I have no idea.
Gold Coast v Hawthorn. Neither are using it this week, and they're in TIO Stadium. They're in Darwin, the Northern Territory. Okay.
Tonight.
Thursday night. Okay, well, there we go. That's a great game. Gold Coast Hawthorn. That is a great game. Tuke Miller's 200th game. Second son ever to do so. Who's the first?
That is, I would say David Swallow.
Well done. Jack Gunston, Lloyd Meek, Luke Bruce have stayed in Melbourne and will be managed. So they lose Lloyd Meek, who's been probably their most improved and top 5 ruckman in the comp this year. Jack Gunston, their leading goal kicker, second in the Coleman, I think he is, and Luke Bruce, who has been sub and sort of playing a role for them. So they lose a significant amount of experience in Darwin. Can they get it done against the Suns?
And can you explain to me, what does managed mean? I know, does it mean they're injured? Does it mean they're sore? Does it mean they because of their age? Just what's a generic term that you could say?
Well, the sports scientists, they're managing load throughout the season, and they have peak load targets, and if players sit above that peak load for too long, then they're at significant risk of injury. So it may not mean they're injured, but the data would be telling them if we play Luke Bruce, he might do a hamstring this week.
Yeah, I mean, Luke's an older player, so is Jack Gunston, but more with Lloyd Meek, I'm thinking
he's probably injured.
That's my point, because you've got a bye coming up, I guess, in 2 or 3 weeks, whatever.
He'd be injured.
So I just this managed thing. This is following on from what you're saying. It doesn't hurt to be a bit transparent.
Yes, Jarman Impey is staying in Melbourne for the birth of his child, which I absolutely love. So they'll be out with some experience. Kelsha Deer makes a return for Hawthorn, though. Excited to see him play. Really came along leaps and bounds, and I know in Hawthorn's 4 walls they really rate him. Ned Reeves will be the ruckman instead of Lloyd Meek. Tom Barras and Jack Scrimshaw return, while Ned Moyle will dual ruck with Witt. So Reevesy could be under a bit of the pump there with Jared Witt, who's one of the best in the comp, and Ned Moyle he's a big athletic, but he's solid. Like he's not a skinny beanpole, Ned Moyle, so he's going to have a big day. Ned Reeves, I wonder who they'll second ruck in behind him, because they'll have to have someone to chop him out.
Absolutely. Another stat which I think is fascinating.
Thanks to aspect accountants.
Yes, of course. The Suns haven't conceded a goal to key forwards over their last 2 matches against the Lions and the Bulldogs. Have not conceded a goal to key forwards.
Sam Collins. That's all I'll say about that.
He's good.
He's unbelievable. So he would have been playing on them all probably. So yeah, there we go. I think it's going to be a great game. Thursday night footy. We love that. Skeeter, who wins it?
Well, Suns have won their last 7 at TIO Stadium. And on that basis, I think we've said this many times, if you tip against the Suns and then you look back and go, what the hell was I thinking? So on that basis, Gold Coast to win. But
Hawthorn can win.
The outs for Hawthorn doesn't mean they can't win by any means. I think Sam Mitchell, I think they went up a bit earlier this year as well. I think they went up on Monday. So they'll be better prepared. Bulldogs almost got the Suns. But again, what they do up there, Miller's 200th, I'll tip the Gold Coast.
All right, I'll take the Suns too. We're going to whip through these, Skeeter. Got a couple of things to do today, mate. Got to go, I don't know actually what I'm doing. Sydney v Carlton, SCG Friday night. Carlton have only won twice out of their last 19 times at the SCG, dating back to 1993, thanks to Aspect Accountants. Carlton can't get it done at the SCG for bloody 30 years.
But there's some good money for them, seriously, for tonight, for Friday night footy.
Twice in 30 years.
Yeah, it's not a lot, is it? It's not a lot to hang your hat on. That being said, in those 30 years, the Sydney Swans have been pretty strong for a lot of that. They're not strong at the moment.
Sure.
They're just going, knocked over by Essendon. They rallied late. I think they deserve to be favourites here, the Swans. They're still missing some quality. And
Tom DeConing's has a fitness test today, Skater, with his larynx.
Was he?
I haven't chatted to Tom. Not unsure.
But larynx, it's obviously a game or training injury, which is.
You'd like to think I wasn't smoking related or anything like that.
Well,
We're not saying that. Just, you and I probably be more chance of out with a larynx due to that.
Anyway, Sydney's been a very hard team to read this year. At home, you always defer to them, don't you, generally? But I'm going to stick with Sydney. I think they've still got enough quality there. But their season's just hanging on the edge.
Nice little aspect stat here, Skeet. Sydney gave away 7 50-metre penalties last week, the most by any team since 2022. I like little rogue ones like that.
That's a good one.
That's a disciplined one. Like 1 or 2 or 3, sort of, you can have those for little things. 7 is a lot. They've been inconsistent, and I really want to pick Carlton, but that stat off the top is just pushing me to Sydney, but I'm with no great.
No. Well, I think we stand by what we said pre-season, that Sydney and Port Adelaide, the 2 clubs that were really contending, you just feel that the slide is on.
Yes.
And Sydney, for Coxie, unfortunately, he's got all the work to do in the second half of the season to, hopefully get a full team back in and then be competitive. I'm tipping Sydney, but the Blues, if they've got any ticker or any designs on playing finals, this is a winnable game.
Sam Doherty had 38 disposals in the VFL last week. He could come back in. Collingwood v Kuwarna? Don't nod your head at me. What is it?
Well, I've got to have a look at it first.
Kuwarna.
Hard enough getting my head around the WA
Collingwood v the Crows. Adelaide have beaten Collingwood since 2016. However, the last 4 games have all been under a goal. So this... What?
I'm saying there's been some controversial tight matches between these teams.
Yeah, we know Lachie Schultz will be out with concussion protocols. Darcy Moore is out with a shoulder. Collingwood are the complete opposite to Geelong. They put who was out missing on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Like they just come out and say, I couldn't love it anymore, Skate. So they'll be without Darcy Moore, which is massive, considering Fogarty, Phil Thorpe, Walker. So they're going to be Billy Frampton and co down there are going to be under the pump.
Yeah, and coming back off, I know they played on a Thursday, so that they've got the break, but coming back from Perth, it's just hard not to love what they do when we saw them at Optus Stadium, the way they got at the back and Elliott and Bobby Hill, etc., able to just slice and dice the Dockers. And Adelaide's in this game. They match up pretty well against them for all the reasons you mentioned. Jordan Dawson, etc., generally is great against them, and Isaac Rankin is a player that we know can play well. So I give them a real shout in this one.
So what people forget about Western Australian travel is you have to go over east, but then you have to come back. And getting to the game and playing in the game isn't the hard part, in my opinion. The recovery and what you lose the next week is. So everyone can say Collingwood travels well, but I'd love to see some stats on what they're like the week after travel, especially off a short week the week before. I'm picking Adelaide in this one. Skeeter, upset at the MCG, incoming. I think this was the game last year where Isaac Rankin got done for holding the ball and he was bouncing and did his hammy and didn't bounce it. That was at the G.
It was at the. So there's been some controversy. Jordan Dawson was taken high, I think, the year before that.
Yes.
It's streaming gold. So the Crows due a change of fortune. Bear in mind, of course, every missed tip that comes your way, and you've gone for a slight upset here, that it diminishes your bank account if you're wrong.
What do you mean, bear in mind? Like, it's like you've got it seared into your skull. It's like you walk around on the back of your eyelids. I remind Sco about the money he's going to lose if you get a tipper. Like, bear in mind. Shut up.
Does it mean you actually barrack a bit harder for Adelaide this weekend?
Hey, I don't know what's going on any weekend. I don't even know who's playing. So, go Adelaide. That's my upset for the week, Skeeter. You're picking Collingwood.
Tipping Collingwood, yes.
Yartapuulti v Geelong, Adelaide Oval, Saturday afternoon. There is some very good games this weekend, I will say. It's another exciting game, although Yartapuulti, the Power, haven't been overly attractive or consistent. They got up for the showdown last week, but this is at Adelaide Oval, so that's probably giving them a little bit more chance than if it was down at Cardinia Park.
Yeah, that's true. Looking through some of their numbers for aspect accounting, Port Adelaide's lost just once from 5 games. It's led at half-time this year, so if they can start well, that's important to them. We know Zach Butters, absolute gun generally, but had just 8 disposals and 99 metres gained, 1 tackle when they played in the qualifying final last year. I think Geelong in my opinion, should have won against the Giants with some late chances. They didn't do that. They match up pretty well, I reckon, against Port.
Yeah, so they've got some significant changes, though, this week, Skeet. Lawson Humphreys and Tom Stewart should be back, so they're both been in good form for them. Jack Henry and Reece Stanley will both be out, though, with hamstrings. So a couple of ins, couple of outs. Willie Rioli will bring himself back from his self-imposed suspension. Not the AFL one, his own one.
Well, he line up on... would Brad Close go near him, you reckon, during the match?
Well, I did say this earlier in the week. If you're playing against Willie Rioli, there's no doubt you're going at him verbally.
Are you?
Absolutely you are.
But in what sense?
Try to get him triggered and playing on emotions that he clearly can't handle on the field.
Yeah.
So,
but if you're doing that, you're probably going down a...
What, you're not allowed... No. See, this is the thing. Everyone, now that he's been suspended, we can't talk to him. No. They are in the AFL. This is the elite level of footy, and Willie Rioli overstepped the line. You can still go aggressively verbally at players. If they want to overstep the line, that's fine. It's within your personal responsibility to stay within the line. So that means not disrespecting race, religion, sexuality.
But it's me saying to you, so Scully, you going to keep your cool tonight? You get that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
How you going? How's your temperature? How you feel? Like
another week off, Willie, after this one?
Yeah,
right.
that sort of stuff.
Yeah, maybe a free kick. Oh, here we go. Starting again, Willie.
Yep.
All right, we can give yourself another week. Here we go. And just keep building him up because he cracks. And that's going to be something he has to deal with. If you're in the back line for Geelong, your back line meaning, I guarantee you there is a circle around Willie Rioli because he's a star when he's good. We're going to target him physically and mentally. It's just a no-brainer. And if he doesn't, that is soft as butter by Geelong. But Chris Scott's in charge. I guarantee you, whoever the backline coach has a big circle around him. You just have to, mate. It's a ruthless game. You can't take it easy because he can't handle his mouth. In fact, you go even harder and get into... have 5 weeks off next week. You know, mate?
No, I agree.
Who are you picking?
Geelong.
Yeah, so am I. Geelong will win that one pretty easily, and we'll keep an eye on Rioli v the Geelong backline. Western Bulldogs v Essendon at Marvel Stadium Saturday night. Thanks to Aspect Accounting, Essendon have won 5 matches this year against sides currently ranked 13th, 14th, 15th, 17th, 18th by average winning margin of 11. They need a scalp. Could this be it, the Western Bulldogs?
No, I think the Bulldogs are going to win this one. Their record, they won their last 8 at Marvel, average winning margin 42 points. Credit to Essendon, you can only beat who you're playing, and they've sort of kept their season alive and they've put themselves in contention to at least have a shot at the finals. But, they survived last weekend against Sydney without kicking a goal in the last quarter. But prior to that, they established a lead of up to 40 points. So they have done a lot right. Not sure how many players are going to get back from injury this week because, of course, they'd lost a few the week before. But what they showed, again, with Merritt and co-leading the way, Nat Caddy was outstanding. I think they're a bit good side at Marvel. But I think the Dogs, despite coming back from Darwin and the trouble you talk about, I think they're top 4 potential. So I think they're a better outlook this weekend. Rory
at the Lobster Lob signed a 2-year contract extension during the week. So I've got 2 more years of haircuts from Rory, which would be brilliant. Zach Reid copped a knee in the back. There was quite a bit of action on social media at training. Clubs said that they're confident he'll play, but he's had a really good year this year, but he has had significant injury history, so we'll see how that goes. We're going to move on this quickly, Skeeter. Western Bulldogs win that. I picked them too.
Dogs.
Richmond v North Melbourne at the MCG. Sunday, Arvo.
Could be grim.
I hope it's here. Yes, it is. Thanks to Aspect Accountants. North Melbourne have lost their last 9 matches at the MCG. They haven't won at the MCG since 2017. Only Luke McDonald is the only player playing that played in that game. There's one player that's won at the MCG.
Could this be the worst back-to-back Richmond games? Like they played the Eagles, who are no good. They play North Melbourne, who are in the same category. But they just don't know how to win. North Melbourne, to be fair, should have beaten Brisbane. They've shown over the last year or so when they play their best footy, they should be winning matches, but they somehow find a way to fall off the perch. I think they can do it. I think they can win this week. I think Richmond were very brave against the Eagles and won a tight game. I know you're thinking the other way, but surely North Melbourne, they have to be ahead of the Tigers on the curve at the moment.
Well, they're not. They've won 1 game and Richmond have won 3. So I'm trying to, I guess, pick sides that, tell me that their form's good enough to win and North Melbourne can't win. Yes, they draw against Brisbane, I know, but right now Richmond's a better side. They've won 3 games. So Richmond, for me, I'll pick them. Interestingly, with this one, Skeeter, Richmond have North's first-round pick this year after North traded it for pick 27 and a future second-round pick, which seems like a junk trade, but maybe Richmond can win either way here.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how many people get to the game, but good luck to them. I'm picking North. But more pressure on North than the Tigers here. And if Adelaide can get a fourth win up, they've probably gone at least 3 wins more than most people thought.
Brisbane v Narm at the Gabba around the weekend off, Sunday afternoon. Cam Rayner, it won't be the last game Sunday, of course. West Coast v Euro-Yroke versus Waalitj Marawar. But Brisbane Narm, it confuses me why everyone doesn't have an Indigenous name. I don't understand.
Or just have,
some, or I don't understand why some.
Some and not
and then
others.
Some games is half and half.
No, I concur.
Cam Rayner and Zach Bailey, 150th game. Jared Berry will miss due to concussion with that big clash with Luke McDonald last week. Kitty Coleman could return for his first game. He's had 3 games in the VFL they play in since his ACL, which was in the opening round last year.
Last year, yeah, against Carlton, from memory.
Yep.
That's huge if he could get back, because they're already a pretty strong side. They were flat as a tack against North Melbourne. North played well, but back at home, look, is it a day game?
Yes, it's 1:20 our time.
Yeah, so if it's a Brisbane afternoon like it can be, where it's 25, 26 degrees,
it's still always slippery.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the humidity, and I think that they play so well in those conditions. I can't see them being beaten by a Melbourne side, which were good for 3 quarters against the Hawks, but they fell away, and I think it should be a comfortable win for the Lions.
Yeah, Brisbane win this one, I think, Skeeter, thanks to Aspect. Since opening round last year, Brisbane are 21-3 when winning the clearance count, but 4-6 when they lose clearances, plus 2 draws.
And Melbourne can win clearances.
Yeah, so maybe there's just a little chance for Melbourne. I don't think so. Brisbane win this easily. Skeet, that is the weekend. That is coming up. Shelter Brewing Co. Beer fresh from the Busselton foreshore. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Shelter FootyCast. All right, Skeet, a couple of questions and comments. If you do want to get in touch with the show, footycast@backchatstudios.com.au is our email. You can send us an email with your thoughts and feelings about something. Shelter FootyCast on Instagram, as well as putting comments in the YouTube below. Freo need to go back to Sunday games, so I'm not depressed on the early weekend from MOBV.
Well, guess what? Who's that from?
MOBV.
MOBV. I think your wish will be granted, because when the fixtures come out today...
Is that today?
I think today we'll get the last part of the season. Any chance of the Dockers or Walyalup being in the Thursday, Friday or marquee matches, I think, are going to diminish.
Yes.
I think they'll find themselves either, as you say, Saturday, more likely Sunday, along with the Eagles at the moment.
I was just seeing if they've released it. Of course they haven't. You can check.
Might be far away. I think they're today, though. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they're probably trying to sort out the Lachie Schultz incident still. Hey, Joe Biden and Max Gawn. Love the show. The Eagles couldn't kill the game in the third quarter. That's what hurt them in the end. Thanks 6PR for the free carton of shelter from JD. Must be a 6PR listener.
Nice work, JD.
Just basically a drive by to call you Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, Maxie Gawn, I suppose. Yeah, no, I get whacked.
Max.
I'll get whacked.
You were president of the state. That's pretty good.
Exercising, running around, Joke's in a wheelchair at the moment. I'm going better than him.
That's very good. I think Freo rely on too few to do too much. He pigeonholes players a bit too, like Simo. This is from B-Dub. So Freo become predictable. If their few stars have an average day out in the middle, then they lose. It's probably spot on.
Yeah, it's probably a reasonable opinion given where they sit in the ladder and the matches they've lost. Yeah, it's probably spot on.
Broken Chairs 7118 on YouTube says Merritt wouldn't get banned for the same incident that Bo Allen got banned for. Dacos wouldn't get pinned for running the ball as far as Harley Reid did. Danger wouldn't get a 50-metre penalty for incidental contact on Ralph Smith. I think Skeets might be onto something with this corruption stuff.
Remember how you saying? I didn't say it's corrupt.
That's what you said. The AFL is corrupt.
Players
You did.
I said, I'm not saying the AFL is corrupt. I said there are, and even going back to when Juddy was playing. Mate, I'm telling you, he got more time with ball in hand when he was tackled than some whippersnipper Will Schofield who came in. He'd be pinged into. I'm telling you, better players are afforded more luxuries by the umpire.
Is that corruption?
No, it's not. I'm saying it is just the way umpires, whether it's subliminal, they just get a better run, the better players. That's in my opinion.
Can you get your thoughts for an idea on opening round, boys? Opening round, all non-Victorian teams play each other. One game in each state. Victorian teams sit out entirely. All right, call your Jets. Then after gather round, all the non-Victorian teams have their bye, and the Victorian teams can have a little VFL round, and we can have a rest. Not terrible.
It's not terrible. Look, I think next year you're going to see at least one game MCG as part of the Moomba Festival, as we said, that opening round, which was part of their... They want to get a bit of footy going on that opening round. I think they'll get one where it's Collingwood and Carlton or whatever it is. They'll get a game. So
make sure we look after them.
Well, it is still, a Victorian-centric competition.
That was from Mike Crutch on email, Skeeter.
A lot of names here that probably aren't legit, I'm guessing.
Mike Crutch.
Yeah.
All right, that's us. We're done. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to Aspect Accountants for bringing the numbers this week. Shelter, make sure you get some beers into you, right? Go and get yourself some beers. They brew a brilliant beer. I have too many of them occasionally and get on Twitter. So I'm hoping that may be the case this weekend for Skeeter. You got something to finish us off with?
Yeah, I have, because given that you're home alone this weekend, you think of he could go completely rogue in the next 48 to 72 hours on X with a few shelters, a bit lonely. And if you see me in the hippie club, say good day from me. It's going to be a really fun ride for you, Sky.
I can tell you where I won't be is the hippie club. You absolute imbecile. Just go do something with your bloody life. See you later next week, Monday.
See ya.